Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. My name's Jacqueline O'Monier. I'm one of the Education and Training Officers at Under One Roof, and we're delighted to host this webinar today with our partners at Argyll and Bute Council. We've got Iona McMillan here today from the Council. Iona will be available in the Q&A session once we finish up the main presentation. So any questions that you've got, I'll do my best to answer them. If they're council specific, Iona will be able to give us a steer there. So you'll see at the top of your screen, we're on Teams today. We're here for the next hour. You'll see at the top of your screen that you've got a chat box and you've got a Q&A box. Rebecca, our comms officer at Under One Roof, is here today. And Rebecca's going to be putting lots of article links and documents into the chat function as we go through the presentation today. Just giving you links to further information of things that I'm going to talk about. Any questions that you've got as we go through today's event, if you can just put it in the Q&A box, then we'll get to it at the end of the presentation. We are remote today, so there's no fire alarms or anything like that planned. It is worthwhile to note that that our session today is being recorded, so you will get a copy of that recording in your inbox within the next couple of days, along with the presentation slide deck, a link for feedback, and a link to sign up to our newsletter. So please don't worry too much about taking lots of notes today. We will give you all the information so you can listen to it and read over things in your own time. All right, so let me get started in just sharing my my screen with you all. Okay, so right, let's go on with the presentation. So you might be here today, you're familiar with our work at Under One Roof, or you could be here today and you're thinking, I really do not know who you guys are, don't know much at all. We're Scotland's only charity that provides free and partial information on repairs, maintenance and retrofit for tenement flat owner-occupiers, landlords and housing professionals in Scotland. We're funded by the Scottish Government and 28 out of the 32 local authorities across Scotland, including Argyll and Bute Council, which we're very grateful for. And we work with a lot of staff that are working in local authorities, also in property factors, housing associations, just to help them kind of navigate what their responsibilities are as professionals operating in the sector, and also working with owner occupiers and landlords so that they understand what their obligations are. So our session today is going to be talking about tenement management and maintenance, and just kind of giving you the starting point as to how you should approach common repairs within your building. And let's get started with that. So we're frequently asked at Under One Roof, what is a tenement? People come to us at public events and online events saying, I don't really think this applies to me because I'm not in a traditional blonde or redstone sandstone building. I don't know if my building is classed as a tenement or not. So we always work off the definition per the Tenement Scotland Act 2004, which states that any building that's been split into two or more horizontally for residential accommodation is classed as being a tenement in Scotland. So if you're here today and you're an owner of a traditional tenement building, or a cottage flat, 4 on a block property, a converted villa, a low-rise or high-rise multi-story building, or it might be that you you've got a flat in a fairly modern development or flats above shops, that they are all considered to be tenements under Scots law. We don't work with detached, semi-detached, terraced or modern townhouse properties, but anything that is classed as a tenement, we're here to help you with any aspects of the management and maintenance of your building. So why is it important for you here today as a landlord or an owner to maintain and look after the building where your flat is? Well, we want you to know what your responsibilities are as an owner. When you bought your flat, you didn't just buy your flat, you also bought a share of the building itself. We want you to be aware of the condition of the building. We know that home reports don't go far enough to tell us the true condition of buildings. We know that sometimes people buy properties, especially if they are landlords, to add to their investment portfolio, and they don't necessarily know what their responsibilities are or what the building is like itself. So we want you to know what the condition of the building is like. We want to reduce the need for constant reactive repairs. So people contacting you and saying the roof's leaking again, the gutter's leaking, we need to paint the windows, we need to paint the front door, or we need to fix the front door, or we don't have any lights in the stair. We want to kind of avoid all of these reactive repairs constantly happening, so that you don't have unexpected high bills. We want there to be an element of planning to it. We want you to have adequate insurance for the building. We'll come on to talk about insurance, but essentially, all property owners in Scotland are required to have building insurance, whether that's a common or a block policy, which is one policy that all owners in the building pay a share of, or each owner has their own individual building insurance policy. You must have a building insurance policy. We want you to have regular communication with owners in the building as well. We know the challenges about communicating with owners and about engaging with owners. So we're going to talk you through that during this presentation. So what are some of the types of repairs that you're going to come up against as an owner? Essentially, you've got three types of repairs. You're either going to have individual repairs that you as an owner are responsible for that will typically be inside your flat, including things like internal walls, doors, parts of the windows, leaking taps, resealing baths or showers, that kind of thing. You'll have a common repair responsibility, which are to parts of the building that all owners in the building as a group are responsible for maintaining, and that includes things like the roof, external walls, foundations. There may be mutual repairs, particularly if your building isn't a standalone building. You've got it's a row of tenements or a row of flats, and you might share chimneys or drain pipes. It might be that only some owners in the building have got access to the common stair area, so there might be a main door flat. That doesn't have access to the stair area, therefore they're not responsible for it, and we term those mutual repairs. So it's important to understand what your obligations are as an owner and what type of repairs that you are likely to be involved in. So how are you going to know about these repairs? Well, the main way that you can find out about these repairs is through your responsibilities is through your title deeds. Title deeds are held with Registers of Scotland. They contain, on Registers of Scotland website, you'll have access to the Land Register and the Old Sayseen Register. You can pay a small fee, it's usually around £3.60. You can go onto the Registers of Scotland website and you can buy a copy of your title deeds. So if you don't have a copy of your title deeds, then there is a way that you can access them. And your title deeds are important because they'll let you know which parts of the building are commonly owned and what your responsibilities are for maintaining those common areas. They should classify, not in all cases, but in some cases they'll classify the elements that are individual, common and mutual. And they'll also state how you allocate or split costs for maintenance between owners. So we get a lot of people that contact us at Under One Roof saying, oh, we've always split it just equally between the six of us, but somebody's had a look at their title deeds and actually it says it's a different way to do it. We're not sure what to do. Or it might be, somebody comes to us with an inquiry saying, I've got absolutely no idea how we're supposed to split the costs for this. It might be that, the building straddles over two separate streets. There might be a more kind of complex structure to it. How do we do that? And the title deeds is always the first port of call. That's what is classed as being the default legal position. You should always follow what's in the title deeds. However, title deeds are not perfect. In some cases, they can be silent on certain areas or what's contained in them can be unworkable. A lot of them, were written 100+ years ago. So the wording, the content is just completely out of date. So how do we, navigate that area where we've got the title deeds and we're thinking that's actually telling us nothing at all. We don't know what we're supposed to do now. That's where the Tenement Scotland Act 2004 comes in. The Tenement Scotland Act 2004 contains the Tenement Management Scheme, which is effectively a model set of deed of conditions, and that is your default position that you would use if the information in your title deeds is unworkable or it's silent at all. The Tenement Management Scheme lists scheme property, which is parts of the tenement that every owner should maintain. So that's things like the ground on which the tenement is built upon, so things like your foundations and solum, external walls or mutual gable walls within a adjoining building. It tells you how to come to agreements about maintenance, what counts as maintenance and how costs are shared between owners. And crucially, the 2004 Act clarified that the roof is a shared responsibility unless the title deeds specifically say otherwise. So I guess your traditional examples of that would be, well, if you own the flat on the top floor, then the roof's your business, it's not mine. Or you're on the ground floor, you've got rise and damp, that's your problem on the ground floor, not mine on the top floor. The deeds lack on information and detail, the Tenement Act under the Tenement Management Scheme makes it clear that all of those areas are classed as scheme property and a common repair responsibility. Generally speaking, where the deeds are silent, in terms of making decisions about work, you're looking to obtain a simple majority, unless the title deed set a higher threshold. So in the case where you've got 8 owners in a building, you're looking for 5 or more to agree to go ahead with work, and that's a legally binding decision on all 8 owners, whether they agree or not. But yeah, it's important that you know that you need to have a majority decision in place in order to progress with work. So what are you responsible for as owners? We've talked about title deeds, we've talked about type of repairs, individual, common and mutual. We've talked about where to get information in the title deeds. We've talked about the Tenement Management Scheme and the Tenements Act if your deeds are silent or unworkable. And we've talked about that you've got a responsibility as an owner. So what are your responsibilities actually for in terms of maintenance? So when it comes to the building, you are responsible for repairs and replacements, cleaning, painting. That could be things like painting the common areas of the building. It could be painting the front and back doors. It could be other routine work, for example, arranging annual gutter cleaning or an annual roof inspection. Gardening, if the titles state that the back garden is common, might be sometimes the front gardens can be common, not just the ground floor that's responsible for the front garden. So, check your title deeds to see what they say about gardening, but you could be responsible for that. The day-to-day running of the tenement, so things like, okay, there's stair lighting out on the top floor, the front or back door lock is broken, something is loose, we need to have it repaired. There'll be reinstatements of the building and also the installation of insulation. It's not uncommon for us to get inquiries from people to say, I'm on the top floor, I want to insulate the roof, do I have to pay for that? Or it could be, somebody that's on the ground floor saying, the owner on the top saying that they're putting insulation in, why should I have to pay for that? Because they're benefiting from it, not me. But the 2004 Act and maintenance responsibilities is explicit in stating that where owners install insulation into the building, it's a common repair responsibility. It's not an improvement, it's not something that is private to a top floor flat. So if you're currently in dispute with co-owners in your building about insulation, or you're considering installing it and you've got cost concerns or not sure how to approach it, it is a maintenance responsibility. So when it comes to organising common repairs in buildings, we speak a lot at Under One Roof about following proper procedures. And this is our kind of 10-step model as to what those proper procedures are. Of course, we're under absolutely no illusion that somebody starts at the beginning and just works their way through the maze of this 10-step proper procedure diagram and comes out unscathed. Most people come out with some form of battle scars, stress, PTSD, you name it. Organising common repairs can take you to some dark places. It's really complex. And we understand that people are just, can get swallowed up by it. It's not uncommon for people to contact us. I had a lady yesterday who's organising a common repair in a flat in Edinburgh, and she said, "This, Jacqueline, this has taken over my whole life. I need help." And I completely get that. It is very, very, very difficult, particularly when you don't get engagement. And unfortunately, when it comes to the Argyll and Bute area, a lot of the inquiries that we get are around that and the difficulties of engaging with people. So I'm going to just take you through this 10-step proper procedure diagram, but please do understand that I'm not doing that in any kind of flippant way. I do understand the complexities about organising common repairs. So what do we want you to do? We want you to be able to identify the repair. We want you to be able to inform owners and make decisions. Obviously, as we talked about on the last slide, about what your repairing responsibilities are. So when you identify it, you're going to know, is that something that's individual to me? Is it common or is it mutual? You need to inform all of the owners in the building so that you can make decisions. Rebecca will post links to our pages on informing owners, which contains a customizable template letter that you can customize to suit the circumstances and send out to the owners in your building. We can help you with information on how to contact owners, where to get information on who owners are, and how to make decisions. Every flat is entitled to a vote when you're voting on common repairs, so we can talk you through that process. We want you to find contractors. We know that that's difficult, particularly in areas that are out with the big cities, although owners in big cities also struggle to find contractors in this kind of post-Brexit, post-COVID cost of living crisis that we're in. We want you to be able to get competitive quotes for work, ideally 2 or 3 quotes. Again, we know that there's difficulties with finding contractors and specialists in certain areas. Once you've got quotes, we want you to get final agreement from all of the owners on how you want to proceed. Get payment in advance. That might be full payment of everybody's share in advance, or it might be everybody's share of the deposit. You would sign a contract with the builder, the work would commence, you would deal with any issues that may arise, and then you would pay on completion per the terms of the contract. Those are the kind of 10 elements of proper procedures. So why is it important for you to follow proper procedures? Well, essentially, an owner can appeal against decisions that have been made if they can demonstrate that proper procedures have not been followed. So if you're contacting somebody in your building or owners in your building, or you've been contacted by another owner in the building about a repair, and it quickly becomes apparent that proper procedures haven't been followed, then you can appeal that decision. If you feel that you've got enough evidence to do that, and you can, you're sure that hasn't, nobody's given any thought to proper procedures at all. But it might be that you're here today and you're the kind of organizer of repairs in your building. So what can you do to kind of protect yourself in terms of demonstrating compliance with proper procedures? Record everything in writing. So any meetings that you're having, whether that's video calls or it's in-person meetings, whatever it is, try and have an agenda if you're talking about a lot of things, or that you're taking a note of what's being discussed about a specific repair, what decisions were made, and any other kind of thoughts or points that were put forward by owners. Have everything documented in writing. And have a think about that 10-step proper procedure model and how you can kind of stick to that. What about when it comes to, the first hurdle of you've identified what the repair is, how do you get in touch with everybody? We know that ownership in Scotland is fluid. In all areas of the country, but there's certain pockets within different council areas where it becomes super, super difficult to know who the owners are and how to contact them, especially when you've got things like holiday lets or Airbnbs, or rental properties that have just that have been there forever, and you're just thinking, I've got absolutely no idea who these owners are. So you can use things like Registers of Scotland to buy title deeds for properties to find out who the legal owners are and their address at time of purchase, to give you something to go on to start the journey of contacting somebody. If you know that property is rented out or you suspect that it's rented out, you can look at the landlord registration website, and you can also speak to the local authority to find out if they can help you. Sometimes empty homes is something that you might have heard about, or it might be a completely new phrase to you, and you're thinking, what is an empty home? It's essentially a property that nobody knows who the owner is, and there hasn't been anybody living in it for a period of time. Now that could be a few months, it could be a few years. I've dealt with people where it's been decades, and there's just simply zero engagement because nobody knows who the owner is. Local authorities have got empty homes officers, but the Scottish Empty Homes Partnerships exist as the overall umbrella in empty homes to assist people in how to trace who the owners are, and how to kind of make headway with engaging with them, so that you can deal with the common repairs process as a whole with all of the owners, as opposed to just a few of them. So there are options available to you as to how you trace owners and landlords. As I touched on when we talked about the proper procedures for common repairs and voting, each flat is entitled to a vote, unless the titles say otherwise. It's a majority decision that you're looking to progress with maintenance plans, and that's binding on all owners. So 5 out of 8 owners, 4 out of 6 owners, etc., agreeing as your majority decision. Where you've got a tied decision, so 4 out of 8, 3 out of 6, that's not a majority decision. Okay, and you would have to kind of go back to the drawing board with that process. But ultimately, whether you have a rapport or relationship with other owners in your building, if you're organising a piece of work or you're intending to organise a piece of work and you need to get there has to be a majority agreement in place to go ahead with that, then you need to give every flat the option to vote. Obviously, we know, and as I've stated, we understand that this whole common repair process is extremely complex. We know that there are issues that owners come up against when they're trying to be proactive about engaging with other owners, starting a line of communication, or it may be, that there is communication already there, but there's just nothing coming back, or there's nothing positive. People are changing their minds, they're changing their stories. They're just like, I don't want to be involved in this. And it's super difficult, particularly if you have got a roof leak and you own a top floor flat and you're constantly getting water in every time it rains, and there's, significant damage to your property. You need to know how to act in those circumstances, and that's where you would look at enforcement options. Nobody relishes the prospect of taking enforcement action, but there are things that exist in law to be able to help you where you've exhausted all other opportunities and you just simply cannot get any engagement from people to go ahead with things. So what can you do? You can look at the duty to maintain. That's a powerful legal protection for parts of the building that provide support and shelter, including the roof. Rebecca will post a link to our page on the duty to maintain, which explains all about it. It talks you through how to invoke the duty to maintain, and it contains template letters that you can customise and send out to owners. So if you've got owners in your building who are not engaging with you, or they're dragging their heels on a vital roof repair, or to another part of the building that provides support and shelter that can be classed as a duty to maintain issue, then there's a letter that you can send out to them that explains what their obligations are, what the duty to maintain is, and how they can, make sure that they comply with that. If you still get no response doing that, then you can enforce that legally through the Sheriff Court. Sometimes there'll be repairs that are that need to be carried out that are an emergency. Again, Rebecca will post a link to our article on emergency repairs, which sets out exactly what is defined as being an emergency. My emergency, your emergency, Rebecca's or Iona's definitions of emergency could all be wildly different. So it is set out exactly what an emergency is and how you can proceed in those circumstances. So if you are feeling stuck and something has happened or does, could happen as we go through this winter period, and you think, oh, help my Bob, the roof's come off, or we've got a significant leak, something's happened, and we've never been able to do anything in this building. What are we going to do here? There is a procedure for going ahead with emergency repairs. Notice of potential liability is also is something that you can consider using in the enforcement process. So what is that notice? Well, it's a notice that you complete some paperwork and lodge it with Registers of Scotland. In some cases, you might need a solicitor to do it, so it's always best to call Registers of Scotland and just chat to them about it. You pay a fee to lodge this notice, but it sits on somebody's title deeds. So if, say, for example, you're like, there's an issue with the roof, or there's a significant repair or replacement to part or all of the roof that we need to do as owners. You're in the process of getting funds together. You've already got a majority decision in place to go ahead with it, and lo and behold, somebody puts their property up for sale. You need to protect that majority decision that you have in place to go ahead with the roof work. So a notice of potential liability can help you to protect that majority decision, and that if the property is sold at any point during the process, then the selling solicitor will see that notice lodged against the title deed for the property and will ring fence funds from the sale in order to meet the liability. You can get help from your council. Councils have got lots of schemes of assistance going on. Some can help you through environmental health with work notices, missing shares schemes where you can get some owners to pay for things in a building, but not everybody. They can help you navigate through the repairing standard legislation as landlords and what your obligations are. So it's always worthwhile if you don't have a factor for your building, and something happens and you need to know if there's any assistance available, to speak to the private sector housing team at the council, speak to the landlord registration team if there's something specific with landlords, to try and see what help that they can offer you. It might be that you've exhausted all options, you've tried absolutely everything, and you're at the last, gasp, there's still nothing happening. Then you would need to consider legal action. And there's two legal options available to you when you're taking legal action, and it's very much dependent on the sum of money involved. So if you're dealing with an owner or owners who are not paying their share and their share is up to the value of £5,000, then you can use a simple procedure claims action at the Sheriff Court. Rebecca will post a link to our user guide that we have on the simple procedure. It replaced the functions of the small claims court and is designed to be used on a DIY basis where you don't need a solicitor. You pay a fee for claims up to for the value of the first £300, and then there's another fee to pay for anything above that up to the ceiling of £5,000. If it's a more significant piece of work and each owner's share is over £5,000 ahead, then you'd be looking at using the ordinary cause action at the Sheriff Court, and you do need a solicitor for that. But we do get people that contact us that have exhausted all options and they're hesitant to take legal action, and I understand why, but it does exist there for a reason, and there's lots of owners that have been really successful in recouping funds through using the claims action process. So please do consider that. We've talked about the importance of understanding your obligations and responsibilities as an owner. We're talking about proper procedures for common repairs. We're talking about the need to or the desire to kind of move away from constantly reacting to things and not really having a definite plan in place. So what's one way that you can kind of move away from that model and you can get a bit more structure to the management of your building? And the answer to that is an owners association. Owners associations are a formal arrangement between owners in a building. It's not currently defined in legislation as a legal requirement, although that is set to change. And it's your owners association is not recognised as a corporate body, so it's not, owners of 19 Loch Gilphead Avenue Incorporated or Limited or something sitting with Companies House. It's simply a formal arrangement between owners. You need to have an agreed set of rules and procedures and a constitution. We've got a model constitution that Rebecca will link to in the chat that helps you and that you can customise to suit your association. And it's owners associations are really good to help owners make quicker and better decisions for the management and maintenance of their buildings. It gives leadership to the repairs process. You'll have office bearers, so a chairperson, a secretary, a treasurer, and it will help you, just plan repairs and maintenance. It'll help you with contractor choice, payment arrangements, how often you're meeting, what people are paying on a regular basis to maintain the building, how you're potentially saving for future work that's required. And it just ultimately gives you a single source of contact and aids the communication process between owners. The Scottish Government is currently considering a draft bill put forward to them by the Scottish Law Commission to make owners associations mandatory in Scotland. I think we're one of the only, if not the only, country in kind of the European landscape out with America that doesn't have owners associations for tenement or flatted properties. It's the norm across Europe and in America and other parts of the world. So yeah, it could be that we hear in the spring next year what their plans are to make owners associations a mandatory requirement. So we are expecting that to come into law fairly soon, and we would really encourage owners that are that are here that don't have an owners association to consider forming one for your building, so that you've got that in place ahead of the legislative curve. You might be here today and you're thinking, well, we've got a factor that looks after our building, we've got a really difficult relationship with them, or we've had some success with them, but we feel let down in certain areas. Or it may be you're thinking, actually, we really need to get a property factor because I'm here today and I'm sick and tired of always being the one that's managing, organising and managing these repairs. It's practically a full-time job, and you just want to get your life back. It's important to understand the role of the factor. Factors are employed by owners to manage the common parts of the building on their behalf, and they're governed by the Property Factors Act 2011. There is a public register of property factors. It's run by the Scottish Government, and anybody applying to be a registered factor has got to meet the entry requirements, including being a fit and proper person. So if you're considering appointing a factor, or you have one at the moment and you're not sure of their credentials, have a look at the register and see what you can find out there. Factors within the Property Factors Act 2011 have got to comply with the Code of Conduct, and that sets out, we'll come on to talk about that, but that sets out how they must operate. Sometimes things go wrong with factors, the owner and factor relationship, and where a formal complaint to a factor still doesn't resolve an issue or a series of issues, then the Housing and Property Chamber's First Tier Tribunal is the entry point to the legal system for disputes between owners and property factors. It used to be called the Homeowners Housing Panel, and that's gone now, and that the new iteration of that is the first tier tribunal. And owners can make applications to the first tier tribunal if they can, their formal complaint hasn't been dealt with effectively by the factor, it's still ongoing, and you can demonstrate where they have breached a code of conduct. So what does that code of conduct state? It states that factors have got to provide a written statement of service agreement to each owner, and that's effectively the contract setting out what the owner can expect from the factor and vice versa. So it will state what the factor's authority to act is, what services that they'll provide owners, how they'll communicate and consult with owners, what the financial and charging arrangements are, any declarations of interest with the specific building or development, and how to end the arrangement. The wider code itself goes on to talk more about communication and consultation, financial obligations and debt recovery, common insurance, repairs and maintenance, and complaints resolution. So if you are here today and you're an owner with a factor in place, then make sure that you've got a copy of the written statement of service agreement and that you're reading that in conjunction with the code of conduct to understand what it is that your factor is doing for you and what their legal obligations are in that respect. So it's a lot of information to kind of go through to even just get you started on the journey of organising common repairs and managing and maintaining your building. So where do you kind of go from here? You've got this information, you're thinking that's great, but what's my next point? Well, we would advise you that a good starting point is to make sure that you've got a list of all of the owners' contact details for your building. So whether you've only got one other owner or you've got, 7, 8, 10, 20, whatever it may be, that you have got a list of all of the owners' contact details, telephone names, telephone numbers, email addresses, etc., and that you can circulate that to all of the owners within the building. You all need to know how to get in touch with each other. Nobody wants to wait until there's a fire, flood, or other catastrophic incident and you're scratching your head going, who's it that owns that flat on the top floor again? Or what happened to the wee woman that was on the ground floor? Nobody's seen her in a long time. There are reasons why owners need to be in contact with each other. So it is good practice to have a list of all the owners' details and circulate that amongst the group. Consider establishing an owners association if you don't already have one. It's a great vehicle to get you started in this journey of the common repair process, so that you can set the rules for how your building is to be managed, and it'll help you get ahead of the Scottish Government's impending plans to make it a legal requirement. You want to check that all owners have got a correct building insurance policy in place. So when you look at your title deeds will, or they may state what type of insurance an owner needs to have. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, that might be that you need to have a common or block policy for the building, which is one policy that each owner pays a share of the fee to, or it may be that all owners have got to have an individual building insurance policy, and that building insurance policy will cover your own property as well as your share of the common area. It's a legal requirement in Scotland, particularly if you've got a mortgage on a property. It's a mortgage condition requirement. So when you're contacting owners to get all of their contact details correct, you can also ask them for proof of insurance as well. It's a requirement under the Tenement Scotland Act 2004 that owners provide sight of their insurance documents to their fellow co-owners. Nobody wants to find out after a fire, flood, or other catastrophic incident that people don't have any insurance. Similarly, people don't want to find out in those situations that people are underinsured and that there's a financial gap to fill in order to reinstate part or all of the building. We've seen this year a number of catastrophic incidents where lack of insurance has caused major issues. There was a building collapse in Glasgow. There was a building fire in Perth where somebody sadly lost their life. And in those two buildings and a whole host of other building issues throughout Scotland, insurance has been a major issue. So it might be that you've owned your property for 5 or more years and you think, well, I don't know what the reinstatement value is, or, we've never even heard of that before or thought about it. If that's you, then it's a good idea to speak to an RICS accredited surveyor to consider getting a reinstatement valuation survey carried out. And that will tell you what the right reinstatement valuation is for your building, so that you can make sure that you and the other co-owners have got the right level of insurance in place. I guess there's no such thing as being overinsured, but nobody wants to be underinsured. Likewise, we've talked right back at the beginning of why it's important for you to maintain your building and knowing the true condition of the building, particularly if you've recently bought a property or you're kind of new to being a landlord, whatever it may be, you don't know the condition of the building. The home report isn't really giving you much information to go on, or you've bought somewhere and you've relied on the home report and moved in and realised, wow, this is a completely different situation than what was on this piece of paper. Again, if you've owned your property for 5 or more years and you haven't had a building survey carried out, then I would strongly recommend that you and the owners get together to consider appointing an accredited building surveyor to carry out that survey for you. A building condition survey report is really invaluable in letting the owners know exactly what needs to be carried out. It's often in a traffic light system, so it'll set out in red what's urgent and what you can kind of plan for in the immediate future, or in the next kind of 2, 5, 10 years to come. And it just helps you plan out your maintenance for your building, what you're going to need to save towards, how you fund things, what you need to make decisions on. It's a really good idea, whether you're deciding to go ahead with a professional building survey or not, that you actually start to carry out some inspections of the common areas of the building yourself. It might be that you get, off the bus, or you've driven up to the property, or you actually live in there and you're thinking, when was the last time I actually looked at that from the pavement? Have a look, and from the outside, what do you see? Have you got a tree growing out your gutter? Is there lots of plants growing out the gutters? Do the downpipes look rusted? Does it look like there's wet patches on the stonework where there could be leaks from downpipes? Does the main door look shabby? Has the lock broken? What about maybe the condition of the stairs or railings up to the building? Does the stair lighting work inside? What's the condition of the internal stairs, the walls, any windows? Have a look, and we've got a DIY building survey guide that Rebecca will link to in the chat, that you can have a look at and get started on that if you feel that you're capable of that. Not everybody is, or not everybody wants to do that. But it's something to work off in lieu of actually getting a professional building survey carried out. Make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, whatever stage you're at with the maintaining your building, make sure that you are getting gutters cleaned out regularly and your roof checked annually. Normally we would say get the gutters done every year, but if your properties in a particularly leafy area, or you're kind of in a bit of a wind tunnel, you might want to do that twice a year, but make sure you're getting things like that done. Start to put together a planned maintenance schedule, and that can just be simple as jotting down, okay, every week they come and do the stairs, every month it's the garden, window cleaning, roof check, gutter check, whatever. Start to build that out so that there is some kind of planned schedule in place. When you're considering an owners association or you're moving forward with that, look at a maintenance bank account. You're looking for a non-interest bearing maintenance bank account that Rebecca will link to our documents on that. It's a good idea to have a maintenance bank account in place, so that everybody is not paying, for their regular common works, or saving for future repairs into another owner's personal bank account, where there's no kind of like formal structure to it. Try and make sure that you've got a maintenance account in place so that everybody is paying into that. If your building's factored, then liaise closely with your factor. You need to have some form of rapport or relationship there. Are they carrying out site visits? Are you meeting with them regularly? What information are you getting from them? Have you read the written statement of service agreement? Do you understand what their role is and what they require from you as owners? ultimately a factor needs owners to engage with them. They can't go ahead and carry out repairs if owners don't talk to them or don't respond to mandates to vote for something, or they don't pay their share of things. If your building is self-factored, so what do I mean by self-factored? I mean you don't have a property factor, there's nobody looking after the building, it's the owner's sole responsibility, then you need to understand what that means to be self-factored. We've got an article on self-factoring, which Rebecca will link to, and sometimes that can help make it clear to owners, okay, we're actually self-factoring. We really do need to get a factor in place, or we need to, at the very least, to have an owners association, and we need to start to formalise things here. You can consider using the Novaville Shared Repairs app. It was put together in conjunction with Edinburgh Council, and it's rolled out across and supported by lots of different authorities across Scotland. But even if the local authority doesn't support Novaville, you can still access the app and put your building on there, and invite the owners to join up on the app so that you can communicate with each other about repairs. And there's an accounts function on there that holds funds to pay for repairs as well. So if you're completely struggling and thinking, I just cannot do this, I've got a full-time job, I've got a full life, we need help, that's something to consider. So how can we help you under one roof? Well, Under One Roof is a charity. We basically came from the original tenement handbook that our founders, John Gilbert and Annie Flint, wrote back in the early 90s. As tenement law was updated, and things just kind of changed with the legislative and regulatory framework, the contents of the book were put onto a website, and then we gained charitable status in 2020. So we have got hundreds of informative articles on our website about all aspects of tenement management and maintenance, energy efficiency and retrofit. We have got in our we've got lots of newsletter articles, or specific articles that we write for the website, as kind of topical issues, things that are going on that you might read about in the housing news, or in the just in the general press. Our technical side of our articles was put together from John Gilbert, one of our founders. He's an architect, so there's lots of intricate architect pencil drawings on the website that break down all the kind of parts of a roof, a chimney, just the structure of buildings as a whole. So it really does help you. If you've got a quote in from a builder, or a neighbour's asking you to pay for something, you think, I've got absolutely no idea what that is. You can go onto the website and have a look, and you can get some technical expertise and try and debunk some of the jargon, and help you get a better understanding of what's going on. We obviously understand that people are busy, they don't always have the time to wade through all of the content on the website, or they might think there's something quite specific that's going on in our building, and it's not just as simple as looking up an article on it. That's where we've got our Ask an Expert inquiry service. So when you click onto you go onto the website, on the homepage, you'll be able to click on the Ask an Expert button, put in your details, and send an inquiry through to myself and my colleague Stephen, and one of us will get back to you in a couple of days with a detailed answer. So hopefully that has taken you through the kind of the whistle stop guide, whistle stop tour guide of organising common repairs. As I say, we know the complexities that are involved in it, and we are here to help you in any way. You will get a copy of the slide deck and the recording, and my email address is on screen, which will be included in the slide deck. So if you want to speak to me, contact me afterwards, and once you've had a chance to kind of gather your thoughts and your notes, then please do get in touch with me. But I'll stop sharing my screen just now, and we'll go back into the live area. Hi Rebecca, hi Iona. I hope everybody found that really useful. And yeah, I'm happy to go into the to the Q&A portion of the event.
Great, thank you so much, Jacqueline. We don't have any questions from the attendees yet.
Okay.
Attendees, please feel free to fire things into the Q&A. So I put a little starter question in there,
Yeah, sure.
just to get the ball rolling. It's one of my neighbours is unable to pay their share of a common repair cost, but the work is essential. What can Argyll and Bute Council do to help?
Okay.
That's maybe more one for Iona.
Yeah. I'll let you take the floor, Iona.
Perfect, thank you. So I appreciate there'll be a lot of different situations, particularly to people even on this call and in a wider context. The first thing I would say is if you are experiencing any issues, please do feel free to contact myself through the private landlord support inbox. I can signpost you to the correct contacts. One of the main contacts that would probably be suitable for most are our housing improvement officers. There are 4, one for each of the administrative areas across Argyll and Bute, and they can help out with things like setting up owners associations and things like that as well. I can link their details in the chat hopefully as well after this. Argyll and Bute Council also reviewed their scheme of assistance this year, so we have a new scheme of assistance I can also link. The scheme of assistance is essentially just a plan to try and support private sector homeowners to maintain and ensure that buildings remain suitable for habitation. There's some different information in there about what grants are available and things to assist in those situations. And at our August forum, which some of you may have been in attendance at, we had a presentation from the Housing Strategy Manager, Douglas White. So we've actually recorded that, and that's available on our Private Landlord Advice Hub. So I can also link that in the chat, and that goes into a bit more detail about all the different types of grants and how they might be accessible specifically for landlords as well.
Right.
Thank you.
That's excellent. I think just in the work that I do on our inquiry service at Under One Roof, typically a lot of the I guess the predominant themes of inquiries that come through from people in the Argyll and Bute council area are around lack of engagement from owners, difficulties with tracing owners, and just getting them to engage in the process and understand their responsibilities, as well as the difficulties in sourcing specialist contractors for certain types of work. So I really would encourage anybody who is struggling in that and any of those areas to use the resources on our website, speak to the council as well to see how they can help you get in touch with owners, look at what the enforcement options are, particularly if there's duty to maintain repair issues that need to be carried out, and contractors is slightly more difficult because obviously there's only a certain amount of contractors that are operating in the area, but it may be that a local architect or a building surveyor firm has got a preferred list of contractors on their supplier list that they may be able to recommend to you. So yeah, there are options available. So we're here to help you with that as much as we possibly can. I guess as well, it's also worth pointing out, whilst we're on the call, we normally do a separate course on the repairing standard, but just make it clear to landlords as well about your obligations to comply with the repairing standard in Scotland. And that sets out the minimum standard of repairs that properties have got to meet in Scotland to be rented homes. It was updated last year, and the update last year includes a section on common areas of buildings and what your responsibilities are as a landlord. Ultimately, you can't be in breach of the repairing standard if you cannot proceed with common repair work. Because you can't get a majority agreement in place. But there are quite clear stipulations that landlords have got to comply with the repairing standards in terms of the common front and back doors to their building, and maintaining the stair area. So if you're not familiar with that, or you think it's been a while, I didn't realise there was an update, or let me just go back and have a look at that. Rebecca can post a link to our page on the repairing standard, where you can take a look at that in more detail in your own time. So I think that's probably the first time that we've not really had any questions from the audience in a wee while, but I realise it's a lot of information to take on. So Rebecca, are we happy that we can just give people the couple of minutes back and let them get on with the rest of their day?
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. Iona's posted some really helpful links in the chat, which I'll also
Fantastic.
send out when we send out the recording and the slides and things.
Great. Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Rebecca, for your support. Thank you, Iona, for helping us to host this event today. I hope that you found it useful. Please don't be a stranger. Please keep in touch with us. We're happy to help you with anything that we can with your building, and enjoy the rest of your day. Really appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Jacqueline.